Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Sir Michael Wilshaw once likened himself to Clint Eastwood, and like the actor's famous alter ego, Dirty Harry, he's never been shy of speaking truth to power. As he hands in his badge and steps down as head of OFSTED, Cathy Newman has been speaking to him. She spoke to him at a further education college just ahead of his annual report, which comes out tomorrow.
Clint Eastwood's gun-toting hero, Dirty Harry, was the unlikely role model selected by Sir Michael Wilshaw when he took the top job at OFSTED 5 years ago. A maverick, a lone warrior fighting for justice. The star head teacher turned chief inspector hasn't been afraid to speak his mind to successive education secretaries. He's proud to have overseen an improvement in school standards. But in a parting shot, he warns in his final annual report that ministers need to address underperformance at further education colleges. We met at Newham College in East London, which has a good track record teaching vocational and technical skills, from health and social care to fashion and tailoring.
250,000 16-year-olds come to institutions like this and need to do significantly better if we're going to increase productivity in our nation and produce what employers want, a skilled workforce. That's not happening. And therefore, I'm saying very clearly to government, recalibrate. Think about this part of the education service and not obsess about the small number that will go to grammar schools.
Why do you think it is that the government's not taking the challenges of the FE sector more seriously?
Most politicians don't send their youngsters to these sorts of places. Post-Brexit, our employers are crying out for a skilled workforce. They're not going to get that skilled workforce unless colleges like this and further education and schools in general are properly funded.
Well, you've mentioned Brexit. What are the implications of Brexit?
We're in a competitive market. The government's made it clear that they want to reach out to the rest of the world. But we know, and the Chancellor made this an issue in his autumn statement, that productivity is not as good as it should be. Productivity levels are amongst the worst in the OECD. Now, if that's the case, we need to make sure not only does this sector do well, but we've also got to make sure that our primary schools do well and our secondary schools do well. The big issue that I raised last year, the differential in performance between secondary schools in London and the South and the performance of secondary schools in the North and the Midlands, is still there. In fact, it's got worse. And the government need to really look at this differential in performance.
Well, what's your answer as to why that is?
There needs to be a minister for the North to bang heads together to make sure that there's a real political focus on what's happening.
What is the one thing, the one message that you would give to the government on what they should be doing on schools?
Well, structural reform has made a big difference. I'm a big supporter of greater diversity in the system, academies, free schools and so on. That's fine. But structural reform only goes so far. We need the people within those structures to make it work. At the end of the day, it's about great leadership and great teaching, and we haven't got enough of them.
So that's about paying teachers more?
About paying teachers more, recruiting good people and retaining them in the classroom.
Do you think the government gets the challenge of teacher recruitment?
Well, the government and ministers should start addressing the issue of teacher recruitment. There is a crisis. Head teachers across the country are telling me and telling my inspectors that they find it very difficult, particularly in the secondary sector, to recruit specialist staff.
When you look at the financial picture presented in the autumn statement, though, there's a hint there that the school's funding ring fencing isn't going to stay. What would be the impact of that?
Well, the impact will be falling standards.
Yet the Chancellor found a £240 million bonus for grammar schools, the new grammar school.
Well, we need an education system for all youngsters. We need many, many more youngsters to do academically well for the service-led economy that we now have, for the knowledge-based economy that we now have, for the digital economy that we have now and will have in the future. And if we just go down the road of creating grammar schools and secondary moderns, our education system, in my view, will go backwards.
You describe the new grammar schools policy as tosh and nonsense. Do you think the government is listening? There seems to be a sort of slight cooling in Parliament towards the policy.
I hope so, because this country will fail if we just get 15, 20, 30% of youngsters to do well. And that's the great danger of divisions at 11.
Even if that means higher taxes to pay for those teachers?
Teaching is a wonderful job. It's going to be a doctor or an architect or whatever. You are taught by somebody in a school before you qualify. It's the author of all other professions, and it will create the wealth that this country needs.
So Michael Wilshaw, head of OFSTED, talking to Cathy Newman.
I've been getting